Nestled in the intercoastal waterway of northeast Florida lies the small fishing village of Mayport. Known for the large Navy base and Coast Guard station, Mayport is a sailor's town. Outside of the military, most other Mayport residents are fishermen, primarily making a living either catching or selling shrimp or blue crab. However, almost 450 years after first European settlement, the town and its way of life may be razed to make way for a cruise ship parking lot. The plans would turn this into this. While it's easy to vilify the cruise industry, it's more important to understand how the forces of globalization brought the town's economy to this point, and how the residents are trying to capitalize on those same forces to bring it back from the brink of collapse. Originally settled by French explorers on May 1st, 1562, Mayport was eventually populated by Minorcan slaves who had run away from the European settlement of New Smyrna near modern-day Daytona Beach. It was largely an isolated hamlet until World War II, when the U.S. Navy decided that Mayport's close access to the continental shelf provided a strategic place for a base. In 1942, NS Mayport was built. Now the town is known for its colorful characters, fish houses, and watermen. Raymond King, whose family was among the original settlers, is one of the town's remaining blue crabbers.
I'm a commercial fisherman. We catch and sell fish, crabs, mostly blue crabs. It's a hard living, but it's exactly what you make of it. You know, it can be, you can go out there and catch you enough for a six-pack, or you can buy a new truck. You get out of it exactly what you put in it.
Raymond and his deckhand Eric both crab full-time and pull, on average, about 8 to 10 boxes per day depending on what their orders call for. Raymond then sells his catch to area retail outlets and wholesalers who ship it from there.
An average day, I get up about 4:45 or so, and you know, I get picked up by the truck, and you know, we come out to the boat ramp here, and we load the boat up, we put the bait in the boat, and you know, ride out. We go through all our traps, and you know, sometimes we'll go through 200, sometimes we'll go through 400. It just all depends on what the order calls for the day. You go through and you got to hook the trap, and then you got to bring it up on the puller and shake it out, get all the crabs out and all the hair out of it, and bait it up and throw it back and wait for the crabs to come back in it, come out the next day and do it all over again. And at the end of the day, clean up the boat, make sure everything's nice and clean and the crabs are where they need to be, and go home.
While it may seem pretty straightforward, there's actually a lot that goes into setting up a business like this.
First, you have to go buy a Florida saltwater products license, $50. Then you have to prove $5,000 worth of income from fishing to non-restricted species. Then once you get that, you get your restricted species endorsement, which allows you to buy a blue crab endorsement from another fisherman. The state no longer issues them, so you have to buy them from a fisherman that's getting out of the business. So then get a boat, get some traps, and splash them in the water, see what happens. It's like being a compulsive gambler. We take $30,000 worth of gear and throw it off the side of a boat and hope it's there when we come back in the morning. My whole business is revolved around whether or not an animal goes in a trap, you know. So it may not be the best business model, but it works for me.
In order to finance his gamble, Raymond must make and maintain working relationships with his bank.
I have a good banker. He's turned out to be a good friend of mine over the years, and I started off taking out small loans and built up, and now I can call him and say, I need 10 grand, and he'll, hey, it'll be in the bank this afternoon. And then I take that $10,000, throw it off the side of the same boat, and hope it's there in the morning, you know.
In order to stay in business, Raymond has to watch the markets and understand the ebb and flow of demand.
I mean, you make all your money between the 1st of the year and the 4th of July. That's where you're going to make your big hit. And then after that, it tapers off, and then it's really supply and demand. You know, the first of the year, first 6 months of the year, you can sell every crab you get your hands on. Then after that, you put back a lot of money, and you live off it, and you still make money, but you know, it's not that big hit.
His wife Tammy helps him balance his books and keep the records straight.
My husband's a commercial crabber, so I have to deal with the other end of commercial crabbing, which is the financial part. Sometimes I have to pick up and deliver, and supporting him both physically, mentally, and many times financially.
As she explains, Raymond makes a small investment each day he heads out to harvest his catch.
There's the boat, the vehicle. Gas has been a huge financial burden. Then you have to deal with the traps and the maintenance of the traps and all the things that go with it. And then you've got to buy the bait and all the little equipment. And if the boat breaks down, replacing the motor or the puller. There's 101 things that are expenses. And pretty much when he gets up in the morning and starts the boat up, he's already spent $100 and he hasn't made a thing yet.
After he does pull in the day's haul, he then has to switch from being a waterman to being a businessman. This is where the relationships he has with his sellers becomes absolutely vital.
You have to build a trust over years with them so that they know you're going to be consistent, you're going to be there every day, because you do have people that will come in and undercut your price by 10 cents a pound, 15 cents a pound, 25 cents a pound. And it's that relationship you have with the retailer that keeps him from buying a product that's basically the same product for a lot less money.
Rod Zeke is one of Raymond's buyers. He operates Rod Seafood in Pearson, Florida, and ships crabs all over the world.
I ship everywhere I can. I ship to Seattle, Washington, Los Angeles, California, New York, Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., Memphis, Tennessee, Las Vegas, Nevada. I got a couple restaurants, Chicago. I mean, wherever people eat blue crabs, I will ship them there. The crabs come in direct from the waterman, which is Raymond, just caught them. We bring them in, we put them on the scale. When we bring them in the other room, we put them through a quick ice bath in the ice water, and then we're going to dump them on the table, and we're going to pack them to go to the restaurant and retail stores, which they'll be shipped either via plane or truck. And after the retail store or the restaurant gets them, then they'll be given to the consumer, and the consumer will cook them to their liking, and next thing they'll be on the kitchen table.
Like Raymond, Rod must also wear multiple hats. One of his newest clients is an outfit based in China. In order to effectively market his product, Rod has to understand what appeal blue crabs have to an international market.
The interest in China is the female blue crab, and what they really like right now is they like this stuff here in the middle, which is the roe. That's a delicacy to the Chinese.
Blue crabs have a wide natural distribution and are found from Nova Scotia to Argentina. They are even harvested in Europe, Asia, and the Mediterranean. Unfortunately for Raymond, the global market is a double-edged sword, and the same system that allows him to sell his catch in China also allows blue crabs from the international markets into the United States. Dr. Garth Green, who teaches anthropology and international studies at the University of North Carolina at Charlotte, has spent his career studying this system.
That's sort of indicating the way in which developing countries have attempted to take advantage of transformations in shipping and processing and the cheaper cost of productions of particular products. We can go into a grocery store and get bags of shrimp, that are from Thailand for, similar to what the cost would be of getting a pound or even less, a pound of shrimp locally. And it seems that shrimp is sort of in an endless conveyor belt to us, that it never ends, it's always available to us.
Dr. Quentin White heads up the Marine Science Research Institute at Jacksonville University. He says that while it may seem like an endless supply, the blue crab population is actually shrinking. He believes this may be due, in part, to overfishing to keep up with the demand, which could be creating a tragedy of the commons effect.
Blue crab population is shrinking. Don't really have good population numbers, but my conversation with local fishermen, as well as some of the data we've sort of gathered over the years, indicates that we are seeing fewer and fewer blue crabs in the area. And what tends to happen then is you find the crabbers increase the number of pots they're putting out in order to compensate for that. So fewer numbers mean more effort to try to catch the same number of crabs.
Dr. White points out that while the government is encouraging more people to choose seafood as a healthier protein, the ocean's ecosystems are not able to keep up with this increased demand.
The problem is we've had a growing population for so many years, particularly here in Florida. And the reality is that we cannot grow enough local seafood to supply all of our needs. And so we end up bringing in foreign imports. We end up making artificial crab meat on a fish. We spray paint stuff red to make it look like crab. I mean, it is what it is. We promote eating fish, we promote eating crabs, promote eating shrimp, and then we have trouble providing that to the dinner table. We have the potential to overfish it very easily. And that's a difficult thing for somebody who makes their living crabbing to hear, that we think we need to control things. If you followed any of the recent information about the National Marine Fisheries Service setting catch limits for commercially important and recreationally important species, you begin to realize what a controversial topic that is.
I don't think we could catch up all the blue crabs if we ever wanted to. That's impossible. If we, like you said, deplete the resource, then I don't make any money. I have to go get a real job. That is the furthest thing from what I want to do. I like my job. I want to manage the resource. I think the only way we could do it is to not have blue crabs, is to pollute our waters. You can't have crabs live in a cesspool, so if we turn it into a cesspool, it wouldn't matter what your management plan is. They're not there to catch. So I think that's a bunch of just bunk that, oh, you're going to catch up all the crabs.
Dr. White concedes that pollution is another major factor in the declining blue crab population.
You have the general habitat destruction. As we have developed our wetlands area, we've taken away submerged aquatic vegetation, we've destroyed habitat. Combine that with fishing, combine that with just general pollution in the water column, all of it makes a life as an aquatic animal harder and harder to survive.
The number of crabbers is also dropping. Over the past 4 years, there has been a roughly 16% decline in the number of full-time blue crabbers in the state of Florida. Many are leaving the business because, like the crabbers of Mayport, they're being developed out of their communities.
There's very few places in Florida that, that has public access, and when they do have public access, it's overrun by the recreational fishermen and the Saturday and the weekend boaters, and so the commercial fishermen have to, fight amongst them to be able to get into the water, get back out of the water, be on the water.
While working with policymakers to manage environmental and development regulations is key to helping both the crabs and the crabbers, most activists agree that real change has to come from the consumer. Choosing locally caught and sustainably harvested seafood may speed up the recovery.
I think local moderation is the key, and I would agree with that statement. I am much more in favor of local seafood. I think, the more sustainable you can make it, the better off you are.
This is where Karen Burns, who's the educational specialist at the Virginia Aquarium in Virginia Beach, comes in. Her organization publishes a card that uses a stoplight motif to help consumers choose more sustainable seafood.
Sustainable seafood is being able to obtain seafood in methods and using practices that are going to allow those particular species to be around for others to enjoy for many, many years to come. There are many species of fish that are out there in the oceans, but everything's going to run out at some point in time if it is not harvested responsibly. You have to look at fishing methods, you have to look at the reproduction rates of certain animals. Are they able to keep up with what the rate at which we're taking them from the environment? So a lot of these types of fishes aren't going to reproduce in great numbers, and if we're taking the big ones out of the ocean, then there aren't going to be any left that are going to be able to reproduce. So the stocks are going to diminish in numbers, and that goes for invertebrates like blue crabs, as well as your bony fish species that everybody loves so well, like flounder. It's up to the consumer. We really look to educate folks that come into our aquarium, folks that, when I'm out doing presentations to the public, letting them know that you can make a difference by the choices that you make. You can work from the bottom up, and that decision, whether you choose to pick something off of the red list or the green list or even the yellow list, is going to make a difference. And a lot of folks say, I'm just one person, but there's a lot of one persons out there, and if we all come together to make the right decisions, then there's certainly going to impact the numbers with these species that are the dinner plate specials.
And making those connections between traps and tables is paramount, not only to saving the blue crab, but also the Florida crabbing industry as a whole. This is where the Mayport watermen have a bit of an advantage. The Florida blue crab industry is worth almost $9 million a year, and many people around the Sunshine State already associate Mayport with fresh, quality seafood.
when you say fresh Mayport shrimp, fresh Mayport crabs, whatever, granted it didn't come from Mayport, but the term itself has been coined. You know, everybody wants fresh seafood.
Dr. Green agrees that capitalizing on that geographic provenance could help the watermen. However, they have to establish a brand connection more powerful than the Chesapeake's for their blue crab market to gain prominence in the global market.
Right now it seems that Maryland really has the kind of brand connection with that, and so other places that are trying to enter into that market have to contend, I think, with the existing sort of brand identity with that product, and so that might be difficult. People might think that crabs from northern Florida aren't the same as the ones from Maryland or the Delmarva Peninsula area simply because they're not familiar with it. They think it might be something different. But it is important to maybe begin to educate part of the audience or the potential consumers about the nature of that particular product.
The localvore and sustainability movements are already being used by other industries hoping to appeal to consumers' consciences. By creating a connection between the community and crabber, watermen may be able to elevate their importance and command a little more for their catch.
I think it's important because it gives additional value, in a sense, to the particular brand or the type of product. Whereas if it's just generic, then they're part of a larger, almost anonymous system of supply. If it's given a particular kind of name that also has a kind of recognition in the mind of the consumer, then it is seen as somehow more specialized and therefore can also probably command some kind of premium. If there's a sense that it's local, then there's some sense of connection and maybe even accountability because you might know who grows your own food. And so if a product is labeled like about where it comes from, then people draw a better connection to that particular product.
Raymond also argues that his product has another advantage over imports.
I sell a live crab. There's no comparison. I mean, yes, a picked crab meat by the pound is one market. It's almost a separate market. So it's comparing apples to oranges. A lot of people want to have their family together, friends together, and have a party with a bunch of crabs, and then they pick the meat out, and it's the experience of it. You really don't get all your friends to come over and open up a can. That didn't do much for me.
One way to move the live crab from catcher to consumer while selling the sustainability model is through community-supported fishery programs, or CSFs. Haley Payne runs Gainesville Fish, a CSF based out of Gainesville, Florida. She works with watermen to get them a fair market price directly from the public.
The main reason behind CSFs is supporting local fishermen, and I think they're an underheard demographic and a misunderstood demographic. And community-supported fisheries, I think, are a good way to put the consumers face-to-face with local fishermen, see that they're not bad guys who are depleting all the world's fish stocks, that they're guys who invest in their local communities, that they're an important cultural icon for coastal communities, and that, you know, when they're gone, you're losing something. But I don't think people realize that. And so by having models like this where you can develop a relationship with commercial fishermen, it kind of puts them more in people's minds. And in our coastal communities and people who live there, I just think that local fishermen are really people that you need to know and think about and realize what they're doing in the community.
And by making those connections with their communities and allowing customers to follow their food from trap to table, the Mayport watermen will be able to create a geographic provenance around their product, putting them in a better position to foster brand loyalty and help guide the consumers to choose locally harvested and sustainable seafood. This will, in turn, help bolster their resources, allowing them to preserve their heritage and fight against outside interests like commercial developers, cruise lines, and internationally imported seafood. However, in the end, it will be up to the consumer to vote with their wallets if they want to support sustainable seafood and the communities that harvest it.